Hello everyone and welcome to the Next Level Video Game Talk Show. There has been a lot of really cool games this month. Some of my personal favorites actually with games like Dragon Quest Builders 2, which unfortunately we're not talking about today. But we are going to talk about Bloodstaind, Ritual of the Night, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and I brought a couple people to help me out with that. So to my right I have Mark Zimmerman and JJay Cody, named after the three-peat.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I'm named after the Michael Jordan of the world.
I love it. So Mark, I want to start with you. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast with Bloodstaind. It has been a long time coming for this.
Absolutely.
And it all started with this Kickstarter. This thing was a rounding success.
It was, yeah. Igarashi obviously left Konami, and he actually teamed up with Ben Judd, who helped fund Mighty Number 9.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He did, yeah. So they collaborated together. And they went to investors, and investors said, hey, if you can raise $500,000 to show interest in this game, we will go ahead and give you some money. And so they collaborated and started this Kickstarter, and within the first day of the Kickstarter back in May of 2015, they raised $1.5 million for the Kickstarter in the first day.
Wow, I forgot how crazy that was.
And so obviously the investors knew this would be a successful game or something that people would want, another Igarashi Castlevania type game. So it became the most successful Kickstarter for any game ever.
Yeah.
With over $5.5 million at its end. And as the Kickstarter progressed, they would say, hey, if we reach this goal, we'll give you physical release. If you reach this goal, we'll have David Hayter as a voice actor in the game.
Oh, I forgot, yeah.
And because he was originally supposed to play JJay, but he played Zangetsu in the end instead. And you reach this goal, we'll put, you give us this, we'll put your face in the game in a portrait. So different levels they had for the Kickstarter. And held the record until another famed developer, Yu Suzuki, announced Shenmue 3,
that's right.
which in the same amount of time of that Bloodstaind had raised over $6 million for
Holy
Shenmue.
cow.
And now that has the record of the highest game ever. So very successful Kickstarter for Igarashi and his team. Yeah.
And this has been a game that I think people have been wanting for a long time. Like the last time we saw a Igarashi Castlevania game was back on the DS.
Yeah.
And he had like a slew of really good games on there.
He had 3. That was his last official Castlevania game with Konami.
Yeah, and then the last Castlevania was those Lords of Shadows games.
Yeah, those are okay.
Sort of okay.
They're not 2D though, so we're a little biased here. Yeah.
So tell me about this game.
Yeah, so it's a 2D Castlevania style game. It's basically a spiritual sequel to Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
If you've ever played Symphony, you'll be right at home. Basically, it stars Miriam, who is a shard binder who can absorb these shards as basically demonic crystals that give her special powers. And part of the game is if she absorbs too many, she becomes crystallized herself. But this evil guild of alchemists were basically doing experiments to appease people during the Industrial Revolution that were kind of getting away from alchemy and supporting industrial type, new beginnings. So they basically raised these demons as a scare tactic. It all went crazy, and the demons basically tore apart Europe, tore apart a lot of the Earth.
Yeah.
And so the shard binders were then sacrificed to try to stop the demons. And long story short, there were 2 survivors, Miriam and her friend Gebel, or Jeeble. People say Gebel, Jeeble.
It's such a goofy name.
What they say in the game.
They say Jeeble,
it was Jeeble,
but it's like,
I've heard
it
people say
doesn't make
Gebel
it any
too.
better.
Jeeble. So Jeeble was the survivor along with Miriam. And so basically, as payback to what they had done to him, he raised this castle called like the Hellbind.
Okay.
And all this crazy stuff happens in the castle. And it's very much a 2D Castlevania style game.
So you bring up the whole situation with absorbing the shards and getting these new abilities, and it's very similar to what they do with Order of Ecclesia.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel, because the way I look at it is, this is, like you said, it's Symphony of the Night, it's a spiritual successor to that. It shares a lot of stuff from his old games. Like, is this kind of like the greatest hits of all of
because like in Order, Shinoa, she basically would absorb these glyphs that gave her all these powers and abilities. So she didn't actually have physical weapons in the game, like a sword or a whip or something like that. She had these glyphs that would actually give her the powers. And so when she would absorb these glyphs, it's very much like the shards in Bloodstaind. That would
She'd like lift up her hair all like saucy like this, like I'm gonna put it on my back tattoo.
And Miriam had kind of like that too, like the crystallization going on in her body. And so Miriam in this game actually gets physical weapons, whips, swords, spears, lances, I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then there's the shards that she absorbs will give her special powers. There's like, you can launch water at people, you can launch fire at people, all kinds of different types of abilities. You can have a familiar follow you around, and you can power up the familiar and make them more powerful too.
Yeah, and I like that they're all kind of like equipped to different things. Like you have a ranged attack, you have a familiar, and it's all like you can have multiple things at once.
Yeah.
So kind of like.
And there are different
build your
actual shards you can get that if you level them up high enough, they become passive. So you actually become an ability you can turn on and off at will, and then equip different shards while still having that ability as you play.
Yeah.
So really cool addition there to the game.
So how many hours have you put into this game so far?
Oh gosh, I don't want to embarrass myself here, but this was a game that I would, I've not done 1 a.m., 2 a.m. game sessions in quite a long time, and this game actually led me back to that.
Yeah.
There were a few pretty late nights, but I did get the platinum in the game, and that was a lot of fun to get that. But I probably altogether had like 25 to 30 hours.
25,000.
25,000 hours, yeah. Don't tell anybody.
So talk to me about the music. So they made the main theme was the original composer of Symphony of the Night, but not the whole game, or?
I believe she did most of the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a game where if you're used to Symphony and used to a certain style that Symphony had, it was very, that was Castlevania at the time.
Yeah.
This is a little more different, like some rock, there's some jazz, there's just kind of some smooth sounds in there. And the music, to me, after a while, it became much more, it didn't feel right at first. But after you played the game more, it's like, okay, this fits very well with what's going on. And there were some really cool areas that had some really cool music in the game. So.
Yeah, there's that scene where there's like a piano sitting, I don't know, like in a garden or something next to the moon.
Yes.
And you can sit down and she'll just turn and start playing. I was like,
she'll play,
this
and
is
there's
so
actually a trophy for that. If you equip the familiar, that's like the little fairy.
I was wondering how, I was like, I played,
She'll
and
play
nothing happened.
she'll play for maybe 30 seconds. The familiar will actually sit down on the piano and then sing this song.
Oh, really?
And it's the tune of the main menu music, like the main theme of the game.
That's pretty cool.
And you sit there and listen to the song, and then you get a trophy for that, which is really, I think,
Which familiar do I have to do this with?
It's the fairy familiar.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I used her for a while, but then I got the White Knight familiar, and he's awesome. You get him to a higher level. I mean, he's offensive, he's defensive. He's just shooting like laser beams out of people and like swords from the bottom up the screen up, and it's crazy. So it's really fun.
I had this this sword familiar that I was like, oh, this is cool. Swords flying around, and he's like hitting stuff. But then I was like, but if I don't use him as a familiar, I could just use him. I would have a much better sword. I haven't found a better sword yet.
Which one did you have now?
I have no idea.
There's there's ultimate weapons, and as you go through the game, there's recipe books, there's weapon books, and as you find these books, you can then make more powerful weapons. And of course, they make you work for these. Where, hey, this, the blue rose, or like, I can't think of the name right now, but like you have to find these really 4 powerful swords, and then combine these together to make one ultimate weapon.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they make you work for it. But when you do get one of the final forms of the ultimate weapon, it's fantastic.
I mean, that's kind of like a big thing in this game.
Very powerful.
There's like more crafting and just a lot of different stuff going on in that game.
Yeah, there's crafting, there's food crafting, there's snacks you can make, there's just all kinds of stuff. And
you got to feed this old lady. She's like, I can't remember what a pizza is.
That was probably the worst part. She was so old and frail, like, I want to go home, but I'm so hungry. And then she wants French fries. Like, okay, so I'll go make her French fries, and then here's an item. And that's one of the things too that went back to Order, where Order actually had these little side quests.
Yeah, from the villagers.
From the villagers. Yeah. This was not identical, but it was very familiar and very at home, that type of thing. So he obviously borrowed a lot of stuff from Order and from Castlevania Symphony, especially for this game, which is not a bad thing.
No, honestly, I would say that those are his 2 best games.
Yeah.
Those are phenomenal. I know everyone would say like Area of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow. I'm like, nah. Future Dracula's cool and all, but those 2 were amazing. Yeah.
And there was another Kickstarter goal that they met. Well, I can't remember his name. It was the voice actor for Alucard in Symphony of the Night.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually in this game. It's he's called OD is his name. And he runs a little library inside the castle. And he'll let you borrow 3 books at a time. And these books will give you like luck, skill, different things that you can do. Like, hey, that you have better luck, or you have better power, or you have better familiar power. And once you beat the game, you meet certain criteria, you can actually fight OD.
Ooh.
And
What's OD stand for? Original Dracula?
It's Orc Dracula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's called, or maybe it was original, but they call him Orc Dracula, OD. And if you do beat him, he's pretty tough. Kind of a cool little thing happens. So I won't ruin it, but
did you see that so Igarashi said, I guess to all of his people, it's been his philosophy for all these games, that you have to, if you design a boss, you have to beat it without getting hit, or else you can't put it in his game.
I have heard that. I have heard that from people, yeah.
That's
and
crazy.
Some of these bosses were a little tough.
Yeah.
Like David Hayter's boss, Zangetsu. The first time I played him, oh my gosh.
I don't know why that one gave me so much trouble. Because like once you figure it out, it's
Yeah,
like
it's
the easiest
so
thing.
simple. I had to look at a few guides on YouTube for that to kind of see some tips. But like once you figure it out, like, oh, just jump over him and then attack him. And then when he turns around, jump over him again and attack him, And then you're like, oh, okay.
That's how I felt with like Mighty Number 9 and everything. It's like almost how we forgot how old games worked.
Yeah.
Like looking for patterns and rhythms, and then you're like, oh, this wasn't even that hard.
Yeah, it wasn't that tough. And the pattern thing is a good example because a lot of the bosses had that type of pattern in this game, and it kind of harkens back to that old school Castlevania kind of stuff to it. So
the one last thing I really want to bring up is the Switch port.
Yeah.
I got it originally on Switch.
You did.
And I was excited because I was like, okay, well, this isn't terrible. But then I was like, oh, it's only 30 frames. That's kind of a hit. And then you start seeing like, oh, it's missing this. Oh, this resolution's kind of rough. This doesn't even look like it's 720p. No. What happened?
They still really don't know. They still say they're going to work on it and hopefully patch it out to make it better. But I'm not really sure what they could actually do for the Switch, which is a shame because this is a game that if you took it with you, portably,
oh man,
fantastic.
I was dying to have this thing on the go, and it was just like I just can't. I could have stayed at 30 and been happy if all the other sacrifices weren't made. There was
there were lighting effects,
that
weren't in the Switch version. There was water and rain effects that weren't in the Switch version. So just a lot of things that made the game look so good on PS4 and Xbox One and PC, the Switch didn't have.
And I wonder if because originally it was kickstarted to be made for the Wii U.
And
then
Vita.
And the Vita, and they were like,
they canceled those.
We got to move it to the Switch. And they said it kind of came at them really fast, and maybe that was part of it. But
the game is running on Unreal 4,
which it struggles with.
Switch has a hard time with apparently. There's some speculation that the Switch version is actually maybe the old Vita version of the game, and they kind of just, I'm not sure that's the case or not. They just, hey, let's port this over and make it work. But yeah, the Switch version, portably, it's cool, but there's a lot of graphical sacrifices you're going to make by not playing on the other consoles.
And I feel like it's one of those that it absolutely should not have needed this many sacrifices. Like it could run this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it could at least run it like at 60 with maybe a little bit of a graphical hit. I don't know what it is about Unreal, or if maybe they did a bad job porting it or something, but a little rough.
It was a little rough.
But overall,
which is a shame. Overall, though,
Bloodstaind.
Yes.
This is a top 5 game of the year for you.
Well, this is top 2 so far.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned the show before a few times. For regular listeners, it's not hard to figure out my number 1 game so far this year. Nothing's going to beat that. But this is easily,
number 2.
Number 2 for me so far. Yeah.
Fantastic.
You're a fan of Igarashi, fan of Castlevania, just 2D platformers in general.
This is it.
This is it. Check it out. It's $40. It's a fantastic game.
Well, speaking of
support
games,
him. He'll make another one. Please.
Right.
He supposedly has ideas for a sequel, and we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah, and let the guy make some Castlevania.
Absolutely.
Like, just let him make. There is something I have to talk to you about before we get off this game. We forget to mention this whole thing with the graphics, like not on the Switch.
I forgot about. Yes. This is something that I really admire Igarashi for because he can poke fun at himself.
Yeah, I kept thinking about how he makes videos where he wears his hat and whips things and has chalices.
If you follow this whole Kickstarter program, for people that paid in the Kickstarter, they would get regular updates. Every so often they would leak footage, not leak, but they would post footage of the public. Hey, here's the game's looking so
people
far.
People got to play early
builds. And the game looked good, but there was just something missing. Like there just wasn't a lot of depth of field. Fidelity was kind of off. It was a little dark. And people were posting comments on like YouTube and Twitter. And one comment actually said, this game looks like poop, basically. It looks like poop. And so what they did was they put It was like they showed Igarashi like in a castle, like at a fireplace, drinking wine. He throws a wine glass down.
Yeah.
He's like, "We're gonna fix it," and then they show the old footage, and they actually call it poop at the bottom, and then new footage on the right, and they show like side by side.
It's a huge difference.
Huge difference. And
Massive.
I can't imagine the game looking like it did
No.
in its final form.
And
it would have been still a fun game.
Yeah, I remember
But-
seeing that
Yeah.
footage
Oh,
like
yeah.
in the flesh, looking at it with Doug, and I was just like, wow, this doesn't look that bad, but it is a little hard to see the backgrounds.
Yeah.
And then you see that new footage, you're like, well, that
Yeah.
old game looked like poop.
Yep. Yeah, poop.
Yeah.
The best word ever.
Yeah. But I'm mad I ruined my own good segue to say, well, speaking of top 5 games,
Absolutely.
JJ, you played
Whoa.
one of mine.
I did.
I am very enthralled with Ultimate Alliance 3 right now, and between that and Dragon Quest, like 2 big games that on the Switch, those are top 5.
If you're a Switch fan this month, there's been a lot of good stuff that's came out for the Switch.
Yeah.
And I'm playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 as you are. I'm playing mostly on handheld. It plays very well.
Yeah, it's not bad on handheld. Like I know Digital Foundry put out their big thing saying like, well, it'll take some hits, blah blah. I was like, pfft, it's fine.
It does, but the big hits that it takes is when you're doing those Ultimate Alliance
The
charge
extreme
change
moves.
attacks, you know, and then it drops a little bit in frames, but everything else is completely smooth.
Yeah.
So if you want to play that game handheld or a handheld mostly focused Switch player, it's absolutely no problem. That would not be any concern I would have because it runs beautifully on handheld mode.
Yeah. So how do you feel? So this game is kind of following the whole. They call them Infinity Stones. I know they're technically gems. But we're in the post MCU world, so. But it follows that whole thing with Thanos and the Black Order.
Yes.
How you feeling about the story so far?
I like it. So I'm about 6 hours in. I'm going to play a little bit more when I get home tonight.
Yeah.
I got right to Green Goblin, and everything I've seen so far I really like. As we talked about before, the writing, everything I've seen so far, it looks really good.
Yeah.
Character design looks great. Even down to like the little taglines that they have for
Oh,
each
those are
character when
so
they come
great.
in. For like Spider-Man, it was like greater power, little responsibility. There's a lot of, I like some of the little Easter eggs they give you too with Venom, for example, where Spider-Man's talking, he says, he's lethal and a protector.
Yeah.
Which is the Lethal Protector throwback for that comic book. And for everything else, I've just really enjoyed it. I love all of the interactions with everybody. I think all the sequencing looks really well. Like even when you think about putting teams together, you would assume that they would work. They do work.
Yeah.
You know, so you're like, you would assume they do get a buff. And for me right now, is I'm running all the Spider-Man characters right now
Of course.
because they're the best. And it is awesome. Like all the buffs you get, it looks colorful, it plays great. I completely enjoy it.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I always play a Spider-Man, and I'm playing a Spider-Man in my team. Him and Wolverine, they don't leave.
Yes.
Mainly because Wolverine gets me out of every situation.
Yes.
But for Spider-Man, at first, I was like, I don't like this character at all. Like, his moves just didn't feel right. And he's got that one where you swoop up and you're shooting your webs down at everyone.
Yeah.
I use that all the time now. It's crazy. Yeah. Like, it's crazy how different they feel. Like, I thought he played great in Ultimate Alliance 2. Yeah. But then they change all the moves for these people. But it feels like these changes are they're more well thought out, I think.
Yeah, that is true. So when you go into the upgrade menu, yes, you only have 4 moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you do have that pendulum type thing where you can actually just start buffing people in general.
Yeah, it's your...
It's like your orbs or whatever.
yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
It's a weird
but
name that they call it in the game.
There's like 4 trees for this thing.
And the other thing that I've liked about that too is that even though this is like an isometric, like a top-down brawler, and it's quote-unquote linear, there is rewards if you do go off the beaten path. Because in order to get some of these orbs, you have to go off the beaten path. Like even within the 5 hours, I've found little nooks and crannies that I've gone to, and I've already got a decent amount of orbs. And for what I'm playing, my team's pretty stacked at this point.
I have way too much money in the game, and I don't know what to do with it.
That's what I was looking at too.
The thing that confuses me, so in that the upgrade tree that we're talking about, where it's like hexagon grids, and it's stuff like more vitality, more energy, more strength, more defense, and you're getting all those buffs as you kind of get through all these different hexes. It costs 2 different currencies. You've got one that's like an EXP thing you earn, and one that's money. and it costs like $10,000 and 2 of these blue orbs. But I have like $1 bajillion and not as many orbs. I'm like, I'm never ever going to spend this.
It gets to this kind of like what are you going to do with it? Unless maybe they're going to allow us to use skins or something with it. But at this point too, I don't I have enough. I'm not even that, and I still have enough points where I don't need.
Have you gotten any of the skins in this game?
No. So I've heard that some of them are worth it, but I haven't done any of the rifts. I found one of the rifts.
They're not good.
I decided I'm gonna go get Green Goblin instead of do the rift, and then come back to that rift when I get done. But I will try to get some of the skins because for me too, I still want some more characters.
Yeah.
And so I might wait to play a little bit more to get some of the DLC stuff out there because I do want some of the X-Men and I do want some of the Knights of
There's some pretty good X-Men in this game.
Yeah,
though.
there is.
You're about to unlock some boys.
Yeah, I know Wolverine's coming. I heard he's he's very strong.
Yeah, he's extreme. Just like in every X-Men Legends and Ultimate Alliance, he's super duper strong. He regenerates health, so it's ridiculous. Having him on your team is basically just like get out of jail free card.
But all things considered with this game, considering in my opinion, it kind of came out of nowhere when it was announced.
Oh yeah, that was like one of my favorite announcements at the Game Awards.
It's Switch exclusive. The game is phenomenal. There's nothing more you could ask for. If you truly are a Marvel fan and you have a Switch and you are on the fence, do not be. Grab this game. Play this game.
And I feel like it's a ton of fan service because not only great characters and characters like Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales making it in, you get stuff like you're getting the Wasp now, and you're getting just a lot of really good characters and the most characters I think they've ever had in one of these games.
And it's good too because the writing is so good that when you play the beginning, you know, and if you've seen those movies or you know anything about those characters, that whole thing is great. They're a ragtag, all the jokes are there, everything is all flowing, and it works really, really well.
Yeah, and I was going to say when you're talking about those when they show off the characters, and I was like, goof, and they show, he is Groot, or it says it's Groot, and then below it says he is Groot. So it's just kind of funny how they do that. But the fan service thing too is you have not only do you have great character interactions, but you're getting the Defenders together. You're getting classic throwbacks like the Juggernaut beating up X-Mansion. And just a lot of throwbacks to old games and old memories that you have of these characters, as well as mixing in all of these new
I
new
imagine
things.
as I go through, Xavier Mansion and beat up on those Sentinels, the 90s cartoon,
it's going to
be inside of me. The 8-year-old me is going to be freaking out as I'm doing this. And for a game like this, that's what you want, in my opinion, right? This is what this is. This is giving you those vibes that you want. Yeah. This is that game, 100%.
So I know you mentioned the costumes, and that is something. So right now, all it is just it's palette swaps. But they did say that they're going to give costumes out throughout this year, I guess, for all these different characters. But that was kind of a big thing for the old Ultimate Alliance. Some people are complaining there's not swappable costumes with different buffs. There's only 4 powers and all that. What would you say to that?
My thing about that is I absolutely agree with that. They're definitely not there. But does that necessarily mean that it's bad? And for my take too, you have to look at how the Switch is played, right? And for this is a mass consumer item at this point. It is selling very well. These are Marvel fans. Marvel now is exploited to where it's got to be casual. So this has to have an easy barrier of entry, and then as you get old, as it comes out, you can add that stuff, and then that's what. So I agree with that, but at the same time, for what I'm playing, portably take off the Joy-Cons it's fun. Yeah. And then eventually, if they do want that, you can always add that in because with Marvel now, since it's made what it is. Most of this stuff is not going to be just bought for you that played Ultimate Alliance in this game. This has to now be have some easier barrier to it too. Yeah. And then eventually, if you do want to buy the season pass or something, then they absolutely will be able to hopefully do something, give us more in-depth stuff about the characters and the actual way we can get everything going.
See, and I always looked at it too, so Ninja or Team Ninja made all the combat and everything, and I think the combat's better than it's ever felt.
Yes.
But say Captain America, for example, he doesn't have a move to throw his shield. I guess he does get one eventually where it bounces around. Yeah. But his heavy attack button just throws his shield now. So I always kind of looked at it as, there's only 4 powers, but they still have a lot of different moves. Iron Man, if you jump and attack, he's shooting laser beams down, repulsor blast left and right. So I think they do a good job of, there's only smaller things to focus on, like you're saying, like make it a little bit less to get into, but you're still getting a robust feature set. And speaking of that too, all the moves, the big thing, so Ultimate Alliance 2 introduced these combination moves, and it was kind of a big deal, and they always like set up the area like, this is where you're gonna use it. But the big thing now in Ultimate Alliance 3 is synergy moves.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's not the big thing, but that's the big change that system.
Yes.
Those destroy guys.
Those destroy everything. So I used one and like one of the first bosses that I played, and it not only on my screen it looked like a disco boogie bomb had gone off on there, but it was crazy, and you just see the health bar just, and that's where I think we're going with some of these moves at this point. Where I'm at is it's like stun, stun, stun. Wait till they all get synergy, max it out, cut it down. Stun, 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 cut them down again.
Yeah, and there's two different kinds now, because like you have the synergy moves where you pull the trigger and you do one of your personal moves, but it combines with one other character to add 2 different effects and double damage. But then there's the extreme one, which you're talking about, where you can go bananas and you don't know what's going on the screen, but you know you're winning.
And I really like the fact that they do give you that choice, because you can start it and then you can not necessarily click it again if you don't want to.
Yeah, or like you could join if you want.
You can join if you want, and I like that choice because that allows you to have more depth in a way too, you know, because you only do that, but that does give you choice. And in certain situations, I'm assuming as I get farther in the game, because I have heard that there are difficulty spikes in certain areas.
A couple of them,
Okay, that might help. Being able to choose when I use my full thing is going to help me.
And that's, I think, a big part of the difficulty spike, and I'm glad you brought it up, because that's been like a big point of contention, I guess.
Okay.
You can knock the difficulty down if it gets too crazy, so it's not so bad.
Because I'm playing on Mighty, and like I said, I am at Green Goblin, and where I have played, I have not seen any spike that was so noticeable yet, but it's supposedly when it does come, if it's too hard, like just turn it down, but I don't think it should be an issue.
I think the big part is that they made these bosses now where it's not just slam and destroy everything with just hits. You have to, you're dodging a lot more than you've ever done in these games. You're also doing moves to like block stuff, like Captain America can throw up his giant vibranium projected shield. But then a lot of these bosses have different things you have to do. Like you fought Sandman, so you know, like, oh, you gotta use these cannons to harden them up. There's this really cool fight in the Avengers Tower where you're just seeing this crazy fight behind you while you're fighting on this elevator, and then you have to do, when you actually get to the boss, you have to do different things to take it down. It's not just wallop things and walk by. Now it's like, use this to zap this, or do this to break a shield. Like I fought a boss in a level to not get too far into spoilers or anything, but you have to hold an item to gather this energy, because if you don't do this specific thing, you'll never win this fight. But it's like stuff you have to think about now. You have to not just wail on things and hope to win. You have to think about how do you fight these bosses, and I think that's a really cool addition to the game.
I agree. I've always liked that too, because like Team Ninja, you said this combat feels great, and in fact, but now with you hold the right trigger and you just dodge. That's a whole new thing where now you actually, if you get good at that,
like you could dodge in the old ones, but I basically never did.
I never did it, but now I'm actually I'm like actually thinking about dodging.
Oh yeah,
and that to me shows some type of improvement in the game. That it has evolved a little bit. That it's not necessarily just the same, like you said, Hulk smash, super awesome move.
More Hulk smash.
There's actually certain things you have to do. And even that, we went back to the Sandman one. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
As a Spider-Man fan, because that's what Spider-Man
That whole level was just
that's
Spider-Man
so cool.
fan
Like,
service.
as Spider-Man's always had to do stuff to Sandman. He just can't beat Sandman. He was got to freeze him, turn him into clay or something.
Yeah.
So it always, I think, and the thing about this game too is that you can tell even that they knew the characters. That the people who were making this game, writing this game, had respect for these characters. And if you're a fan, that's all you want, And that's the thing I think that makes this good.
I'm going to go into the comparison here for a second, but like the voice cast is so good in this game compared to what they've done before. Like before, it just kind of felt like they pulled some people in and it kind of worked out. But this one, it's like, no, we got big names: Laura Bailey, Nolan North. They got the guy. Yuri, I can't remember his last name, that plays Spider-Man in PS4.
Yes.
Like, You're getting Josh Keaton in. You have all these huge names playing these characters again, which is fantastic. Like it's more production than I think this game has had in quite some time. But how do you feel? Like, where would you rank Ultimate Alliance 3 so far compared to X-Men Legends and the Ultimate Alliance games? Like, how do you feel?
I
about
would
that?
say that it is probably my second favorite besides 2.
Ultimate Alliance 2?
Yes, Ultimate
Okay.
Alliance 2. Just because in terms of based on not having any expectation for the game
Mm-hmm.
and being this pleasantly surprised and blown away by it, it has to be my second favorite. Just because I love the writing already. Like I just truly, like everything about what I've played just feels right.
And I haven't felt this good about this series of games since X-Men Legends 1. Like, I love all these games, but X-Men Legends 1 was the last time it really hit its mark.
I really, really hope that this one sells well, which it's a Marvel game. So
And it looks like it is.
It is. And I really hope that we get more of this.
Yeah.
Like, give me a 4, and I'll play it on my Switch, 2, 3, 5, whatever Switch it is, I'll be there. Like, I'll absolutely be playing that game.
Last question for you, JJ.
Yes.
What's your team?
What's my team right now?
Yeah, they all spiders.
Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, and Venom.
Beautiful team.
And that's how I'm rocking it right now. And I love Venom's just like that weird
Oh, yeah,
move
he
where
turns
he
into a
just,
giant
just
jaw.
turns into a giant thing and attacks.
That thing
and
wrecks everybody.
it's super strong. And for me now too, like I'm just swinging around the whole time, like for Spider-Man. So I'm just like absolutely just having a lot of fun doing
Yeah.
it.
Just wait till you level them up more because the powers get even better.
Now, the one thing I will say, because we touched on it before with like the difficulty and stuff, the other thing that people are talking about were the puzzles. I think the puzzles are not as bad as people are saying them to
They're
be.
easy.
They're easy. They're not the worst at the end. They absolutely add gameplay.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, do you always want to just run through a hallway? You know what I mean? Like, we'll switch it up for you a little bit. Like I just did the door one, where you have to get all and even that was fine to me. That took me 15 minutes. That absolutely deviated, gave me a little bit of a puzzle, and I was done.
Yeah.
So again, those are not any issues that I think are huge ones that people are making them out to be
Absolutely.
at this point.
It's been a phenomenal game so far, and man, Bloodstaind 2 has just been it's been a great month of
It has.
killer games.
Yes.
My wife is
Yes.
definitely mad at me for all the stuff that I've been playing, but I tell you what, I'm not going to stop. Ultimate Alliance 3 is one that I'm going to keep playing. Bloodstained I've got to finish because
You need to finish it.
it's phenomenal. And Dragon Quest Builders 2, I'll mention it anytime I can. Probably my favorite game so far this year. But I just want to thank you two for coming in and sitting down, talking to me about these games. It's always a delight being here to talk about this stuff. If you want to hear more of stuff from the next level, you can actually join me and Mark on our weekly podcast. It is The Next Level. You can get it on Podbean. You can get it on the iTunes, Google Play. It is on Spotify. Check out the website, tnlvl.blogspot.com. Links are all right there. We have more shows like this as well. We have the talk show, lots of other stuff that we've checked out. So if you want to find more, there it is. But also, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/thenextlevel. I just want to say thanks again for checking us out, and we'll see you on the next level.